my lovelies, and welcome back to the final episode of the Bible season of Through Grace's Lens with your host. I know you guys are probably thinking, girl, you said you didn't know how long this was going to be, and we get that, but girl, was this long? And I know, and I am sorry. I told you guys it was going to be long. I told you I was gonna, I was gonna prep a lot, and this has taken a lot of prep, but I hope you guys have enjoyed it so far. Just before we dive into this episode about culture clash, as you can see from the title, I hope you guys have had a beautiful week, filled with the Lord's grace and love. And let's dive straight into this. Like I said before, as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking about culture clashes. When it comes intertwined with faith and how often people would choose a social norm and what is accepted compared to what is actually right and what actually goes by the law. Looking inwards to it all, it's something that has been happening for centuries, and it's not just in today's world. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this in an episode before. Like I briefly touched on the topic, but again, here we are doing a full-blown episode of it all. Now, we're gonna jump in straight into context of it all. Like, we're gonna do comparisons in terms of where else this has happened and how has this happened. For example, Jesus and the Pharisees, Matthew 18. This was after Jesus walked on water and ended up in Gennesaret. This first syllable of the name Gennesaret is evidently the Hebrew word gan, or air quotes, like often garden, which is the second may be a proper name, possibly. However, the name may represent the Hebrew gain sarim, pricely gardens. It is applied to a district on the northwest shore of the Sea of Galilee. In Matthew, you can look that up if you want more context. Matthew 14:34 and Mark 6:53. Now known as El Guer, or Little Gore, it curves around from El Medjel. Yeah, that's it. El Medjel in the south. Yeah, you guys are probably thinking, you sound like you're reading this. I am, because this is a big definition. I hope you guys understood what I was saying, because it was a bit of a mouthful. But long story short, the name is obviously Gennesaret is a Hebrew name, yeah. Often means garden, and again, has a second name possibly relating to the Hebrew phrase Ganesarim, which means pricely gardens. And again, it meanders off the northwest shore and curves round from the El Medjel in the south. Now let's read what this says. Then some Pharisees and teachers of the law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, "Why do your disciples break the traditions of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat." Jesus replied, "Why do you break the commands of God for the sake of your tradition? For God said, 'Honor your father and mother,' and anyone who curses their father or mother is to be put to death. But you say that if anyone declares what might have been used to help their mother and father is devoted to God, they are not to honor their father or mother with it. Thus, you nullify the word of God for the sake of your tradition. You hypocrites, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you." And that is Matthew 15:1-7. As we can see, this was a very hefty example. And we can tell Jesus was not happy, because these men were really hypocriting. They were being hypocrites. And this is a clear example of people choosing cultural norms over what the law says. You see, the Pharisees were trying to clock Jesus and the disciples, but then Jesus clocked them back and was like, "Hold on a minute. Why are you being such a hypocrite? Look at what you and your people are doing, and look at how you're defying the word of God. And then look at what we're doing, just because you don't wash our hands. collect yourself. You know what I mean? He was really on the point with collect yourself. Like, for example, the Pharisees here are more concerned about the cultural norms than the laws. And imagine they're shaming other people about it. Don't shame me. You're even shaming the disciples of Jesus. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. This is so similar to today's culture. And let's talk about it. So I could name so many things that are so normalized, but we're not supposed to be doing in the Bible. So I know, I'm gonna say this. I'm probably gonna call a lot of people out on this, but hey, I called myself out on some of these too. Let's talk about mukbangs, guys. Mukbangs, eating such a heinous amount of food to the point where you're about to get sick, and like you've seen like the behind the scenes of some of these mukbangers where they're spitting the food out. Babes, that is still gluttony. It's greed and gluttony. Do you know what I mean? Because all that food, and you're trying to down it for the entertainment of people, that falls into gluttony. Do you know what I mean? And again, it falls into one of the seven deadly sins, or something that the Lord detests. Obviously, the Lord detests all sins. And another thing I'm gonna touch on, and I'm gonna touch on this like very thingy, because I know not everyone, a lot of people out there are like, they're battling this right now. Do you know what I mean? And it's a good thing to voice, because it's like, even if you're like a teenager listening to this, or like if you're a young adult, no matter what your age is, you're still a part of the society. And society here, like, really, talks and breathes and preaches about, fornication and sex before marriage. How it's such a norm, and how and people saying like it should be in relationships, like it should be there, like it should be. It's a staple. It is a staple. It is the foundation. No, Jesus is supposed to be a foundation. But then again, I am not here to condemn anyone, or I'm not here to be like, oh, like, you are not supposed to be a part of this. Like, you're not supposed to be doing that. Like, take yourself out. I'm not here to condemn you, because again, I am not a person who judges. Everyone falls into sin, and it is what it is. Like, it just happens sometimes. But then at the same time, we are also influenced from from who we're surrounded by, what we're surrounded by, what's on social media, because I know there's some people that are chronically online. Like, I know I am one of them. Chronically online, it's terrible. It's so distracting sometimes. Not sometimes, actually, all the time. But then, do you know what? Sometimes it's nice to be in the loop. However, again, there's like a lot of factors. So when you're more exposed to certain things like this, it really does affect you. It really, really does. And again, um it's just like, it's just like the little things. A lot of things people may think like, oh, this won't affect me in the future, but then it's like the more you're exposed to certain things like social media, and I feel like this, like, social media is such a toxic place in terms of where where things stem from, because this is where people are sharing their opinions and what is supposed to be and what's not supposed to be. And I feel like this is where it all came from, in terms of, oh, this, you know all these things are supposed to be a staple within a relationship, and I just really, really don't think so. You know what I mean? I honestly don't think though. Like, you know what I mean? And I know a lot of people are gonna be like, well, like, in terms of like the gluttony and the greed, God forbid people like to eat. God forbid, people like to enjoy their food and share with other people. Like, God forbid people like to eat big portions because that's what they like eating. God forbid people like to eat big portions because that's what they can handle. Girl, yes, God forbids it. What you mean? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean for their entertainment? Like, what do you actually mean? What do you mean for the entertainment of people? What do you mean? You gotta eat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes, yes, he does. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like you could go back and forth with someone on this topic, and like it just feels like a never-ending cycle. But the main point of this is that unfortunately he does forbid it, and there's just certain things in society that are mentioned, and they're like becoming such a norm that it becomes normal to them. Like, people who are even exposed to the Bible, but then at the same time they become ignorant to some certain things. And I'm not saying like that I ain't ignorant to it. I know I'm ignorant to certain things, and I'm working on that. Like, I acknowledge the fact that I'm ignorant to certain things. We learn things new every day. Like, what, like, the whole point of this is like, trying to make ourselves aware to what is going on in the media. You know what I mean? What we're exposing ourselves to. So, like, I remember I used to go on, like, there'd be times where I'd take social fast. Like, I'd take social media breaks. I'd delete my social media, or like if I'm on social media, I'd be on it for like a certain hour, or I'd just cut it off completely. Because one, I found that I have a lot more time. I have a lot more free time on my hands. There's a lot more things I can get done. There's a lot more things I can do. And it honestly just works out. And I feel like that's a way, it's a good way to detach. And I feel like if you're trying to find a way to detach, honestly, take breaks. Take breaks from it. And I've done this for quite some time, and it's honestly the best thing that I've ever done. Like, people like fasting from it, honestly. I'd say it's a way of fasting, genuinely fasting, because it's like you're giving your mind a mental break from all the exposure, you know what I mean? And it's a good thing. But you know what I mean? And one thing this also does is makes it harder for people who like follow Christ, because again, it's not considered a norm. I feel like, it's not considered a norm because people are like, oh my gosh. And then you get girl, you get the next person turning around and going, oh my gosh, you're such a Jesus freak. Like, why do you always do that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they turn around and say the most outrageous nonsense because you disagree with something. You know what I mean? Like, let me use this against them. Oh, God forbid you have an opinion. God forbid you follow the law. God forbid you stand by what you stand for. Do you know what I mean? Things like that. You know what I mean? Things like that. Like, you stand on the right side of things. Like, God forbid you have some sort of self-respect. God forbid you're different from anyone. God forbid you don't fit into the norm. Do you know what I mean? And what is the norm? The norm changes every year. The norm, like, because there's trends. The norm changes from like every single year. Like, you want us to keep up with these trends. Not everyone can keep up with these trends. You know what I mean? Like, for example, oh, I was a bit too loud there. I have switched to a new mic, by the way, guys, just to test it out. I am so sorry if the quality is a bit different. But anyway, for example, when we're talking about vanity and when we're talking about like how, trends are always changing. They really are. And people are always going to be talking about something. Like, people are talking about Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande and how they look really, really skinny. And they're saying that they're bringing back and skinniness, or and skinny, and they're calling them ancestors, whatever that means. But then you've got, on the other hand, people talking about people who were still on BBL culture and things like that. Things are always going to be changing. You know what I mean? But I also think with that, I also think this also leads to our patience as a society. A lot of us have a lack of patience, and I think this is because of the constant change. And I think this is because of, yeah, we'll sit on something for a bit and we'll like enjoy it, but then we get bored of it and we want something new. And I think this also goes into how we want money, in terms of how we want money in a quick way, how we want to have like a quick income, and how we barely have to, in terms of how we barely don't have to do anything about it to life, which is really unfair. Because not necessarily unfair, because I get, people want what they want, but I mean, like, I feel like it also, having that also causes like an outpour onto other things. So in terms of how we look at God, and in terms of how we speak to him, or in terms of our anger because of, oh, when he's not giving us something right away, or like, why is he not giving us this, causing a lack of patience. I feel like this also goes into friendships, relationships, family members, and this can cause a strain. But I hope you guys understand what I was saying, or what I've said. And yeah, I've just got a bit of an announcement. Um, Once I post this, the next episodes, or the next trailers, the next post you're gonna see are gonna be about our Christmas special coming up and our New Year's special. And I just really want to touch on that, because I did an episode on celebrations, and this is called Archives, and I remember mentioning them. So things like Easter, Christmas, and stuff like that. I haven't posted them, hence why I said they're in Archives. But if you guys want to know, if you want to see all that, I might make them Spotify exclusives and post them on Spotify. But who knows? It just depends on you guys. Yeah. Depending on how you oversee this, and I'm saying this with a lot of caution, because I know a lot of Christians out there that
don't really overlook Christmas. That I feel like, no, if it's not said in the Bible, if it's not seen, if I don't have a date, if I don't have a time, if I don't have another, I'm not gonna simply take part in it. And I completely understand that, because there are a lot of people out like that. Like, I remember when I was researching, I was iffy and stuff like that. But then I think it also comes to the point of how you look at it, and how you approach it in terms of your heart posture. And also, if you truly understand in your heart, like, this is not the day he was born. This, we know it's not said in the Bible, we understand this, but then you still want to use this day to, like, sit down and thank him, and really look at it, and really use this as like a memorial day of, oh my gosh, he came down on this day. And he didn't even just appear like that. He took his time. He came down in the way of how he brought us when we were babies, in a womb, pushed out, and all that stuff. Like, he took that time. And I know some of you guys are gonna say, yeah, but da 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 da, but then this is how I'm saying, like, it's how your heart posture is. As long as you know the facts of it, and you know why you're overlooking this day, then cool. But if you're sitting there and you're just looking forward for the presents and whatnot, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you, honestly and truly. But yes, I think that is pretty much it. And I think that's all I really have to say. Apart from, I hope you guys really enjoyed that, and I hope you guys really understood um where I'm coming from and what I'm saying in terms of just general culture clashes have been there for ages. They affect us, whether that's like like affect us in like many ways that we don't really realize can affect our personality, because there's also things that come in terms of nature versus nurture. Um, in terms of what we pick up from society can also add into our personalities, or add into how we are as people. Nurture in terms of how we grew up and how we have taken that time to sit with God and let him nurture us and pour into us. But that is all I have to say. I will see you guys very soon. I am going to try and open like a forum for us to really talk, because I really want to get in touch with you guys during this time, and I will keep you guys posted on that. But again, I will see you guys very, very soon, and have a nice week. Have a blessed week. Not just a nice week, have a really blessed week. Really understand what I'm saying and really look into it. If you're still unsure, open your Bibles, look into it. And I actually recommend you guys read on from Matthew 15, 1 to verse 12, because I know I read on from 1 to verse 7, but 1 to verse 12 honestly just really widens your eyes. But anyway, that's it for now. Goodbye, my lovelies, and I will see you very soon.